What's up, Gorilla Gang? We back with another one, and today we reacted to two men force their way into these folks' house, rape them, kill them, all on some wild, crazy shit. But we gonna get to the video. But before we do that, y'all make sure y'all like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel. We're a growing channel. Please come and grow with us, man. And show y'all love and support by smashing the like button. It's free. And with that being said, let's get into the video.
On a cold December evening in 2000, what began as a quiet gathering of friends in a Wichita home turned into a nightmare that would haunt a community forever. Two brothers, driven by greed and violence, invaded the home, unleashing terror on the unsuspecting group. Their actions left 4 lives tragically cut short and 1 survivor to recount the chilling ordeal. As the investigation unfolded, horrifying details emerged, details that gripped the nation and raised unsettling questions. How could such senseless brutality occur in a peaceful neighborhood? And what would it take to bring those responsible to justice? This is the story of a crime spree that shook a city to its core, a tale of survival, loss, and an unrelenting pursuit of justice. This true crime story explores real-life events that may include unsettling details. Some viewers may find the content distressing. Kindly proceed with caution. Welcome to the Crime Series. I'm glad to have you join us on another video. Kindly subscribe, like, and share. Let me know where you are watching from. Reginald and Jonathan Carr were born in Dodge City, Kansas, to a family plagued by violence, instability, and abuse. Their childhood was marked by severe neglect, physical abuse, and exposure to crime at an early age. Their mother, Janice Harding, was described as a strict and emotionally distant woman who struggled to provide affection or a stable environment for her children.
That gotta be hard to come from a family from a mom who don't show no type of affection to you. It usually be the dads that don't show don't show affection, but to have a mom that don't show affection, that gotta hit so crazy different, bro. I ain't never experienced that, thank God, but I know people have, and I feel for y'all that have never been shown, motherly love. That's terrible, but
Their father was absent for most of their lives, leaving a void that was filled with hardship and trauma. Janice remarried, but her second marriage was equally unstable. Her new husband was reportedly violent, at one point holding a firearm to her head during an argument. The boys frequently witnessed domestic violence, which contributed to their growing aggression and instability. Occasionally, they stayed with their maternal grandmother, but even that environment offered little solace. Described as unpredictable and prone to outbursts, she provided no consistent support or safety for the young boys. The Carr brothers were left to fend for themselves in many ways, often turning to the streets for a sense of belonging and survival. By the time they reached their teenage years, both brothers had dropped out of school. Reginald, the elder of the two, developed a reputation for being a troublemaker. He was frequently involved in fights and had a long record of suspensions and expulsions. Jonathan, on the other hand, was less outwardly aggressive, but struggled with deep-seated emotional issues. At the age of 16, he attempted taking his life by drinking antifreeze, an act that underscored the profound despair he felt. The brothers' exposure to criminal elements began early. By the time Reginald was 11, he had already encountered drugs and alcohol, often supplied by older relatives. He became involved in petty crimes, escalating to more serious offenses as he grew older. At 18, Reginald was already serving time in prison for aggravated assault. Jonathan, though not as violent as Reginald during their early years, was nonetheless drawn into the same world of crime. The Carr brothers' early lives were a tragic prelude to the horrors they would later unleash on Wichita. Their story raises questions about the impact of environment on behavior, the cycle of violence, and whether such crimes could have been prevented if they had received the help they so clearly needed. On December 8, 2000, Andrew Schreiber, a 23-year-old assistant baseball coach, became the Carr brothers' first victim. While at a come-and-go convenience store in Wichita, Kansas, Schreiber was approached by two armed men, later identified as Reginald and Jonathan Carr. The brothers forced him at gunpoint into his own vehicle. What began as a routine evening quickly turned into a terrifying ordeal that would mark the start of a crime spree unlike any the city had ever seen. The Carr brothers ordered Schreiber to drive to multiple ATMs across the city, forcing him to withdraw a total of $800. Throughout the harrowing experience, Schreiber complied with every demand, hoping that cooperation would spare his life. He later recalled his overwhelming fear during those tense hours, saying, "I was just hoping if I did what they said, they'd let me live."
You go hit somebody clock for that in a week and get that in a week instead of going to do prison time about $800. G, you tripping. Real shit. You tripping, G. I don't know what y'all thinking. But I wanted to say from earlier, y'all, leave in the comments how y'all feel about do these men look at women different from not having motherly love? Let me know what y'all think about that in the comments, man. I just had to put that out there.
Despite the apparent randomness of their choice of victim, the Carr brothers exhibited a calculated level of control. They made sure Schreiber could not seek help immediately by shooting out the tires of his car before fleeing the scene in another vehicle. Alone and stranded in an isolated field, Schreiber was physically unharmed but emotionally shaken. Following the incident, Schreiber reported the crime to the police, providing them with descriptions of his assailants. Unfortunately, at the time, there were few leads, and investigators had no way of predicting the escalation of violence that would follow just days later. Schreiber's ordeal was a chilling start to the brutal events that would soon engulf Wichita. 3 days later, on December 11th, 55-year-old Ann Walenta, a beloved cellist with the Wichita Symphony Orchestra, was ambushed outside her upscale suburban home. Walenta had dedicated her life to music, not only performing but also serving as the orchestra's librarian, where she managed and organized musical scores. She was well known in her community, admired for her talent, warmth, and her involvement in programs that brought classical music to underprivileged youth. That evening, after returning from a rehearsal, Walenta parked her sport utility vehicle in front of her home. As she gathered her belongings and prepared to head inside, she noticed a man approaching her vehicle. He appeared to be in distress and asked for help. Sensing something was off, but unsure of his intentions, she attempted to drive away. In a flash, the man, later identified as Reginald Carr, drew a firearm and fired multiple shots through the driver's side window. Shattered glass rained down on Walenta as bullets struck her. Despite her critical injuries, Walenta mustered the strength to lean on her car horn, creating an incessant noise that caught the attention of a nearby neighbor. When first responders arrived, they found Walenta conscious but in excruciating pain. She was rushed to a hospital where doctors worked tirelessly to save her life. Despite her grave condition, she managed to give law enforcement a brief description of her assailant. Her courage and determination in those final hours provided a crucial lead for investigators. For a few days, it seemed as though Walenta might defy the odds and survive the attack. However, the damage inflicted by the gunshots was too severe. Walenta succumbed to her injuries on December 13th, leaving behind a grieving community. The murder of Ann Walenta sent shockwaves through Wichita. Her death was not only a personal tragedy for those who knew her, but also a harbinger of the violence that would soon escalate. The randomness and brutality of the attack heightened fear in the city, with many residents now feeling vulnerable in their own homes. Police intensified their investigation, but at the time, they could not connect Walenta's murder to the earlier robbery of Andrew Schreiber. The attackers seemed not to have no clear pattern beyond their opportunistic targeting of unsuspecting victims. It would take the horrific events of December 14th to finally link the crimes and bring the perpetrators to justice.
As we go into the most intense part of this video, kindly like and subscribe to this channel. It gives me motivation to create more videos. If you love this video and wish to see more, kindly subscribe.
On December 14, 2000, 5 friends gathered at a triplex on Birchwood Drive in Wichita, Kansas, for what was intended to be a peaceful evening among close companions. The residents of the triplex were Jason Beaufort, A 26-year-old high school science teacher, Brad Heika, a 27-year-old financial analyst at Koch Industries, and Aaron Sander, a 29-year-old who had recently left his job to pursue a calling in the priesthood. They were joined by Jason's girlfriend, H.G., a 25-year-old schoolteacher, and their mutual friend, Heather Muller, a 25-year-old graduate student at Wichita State University. Jason Beaufort had been dating H.G. for some time, and he had recently purchased an engagement ring with plans to propose. The two were deeply in love, and their relationship brought joy to their circle of friends. Heather Muller and Aaron Sander had previously dated but remained close friends, bonded by their shared devotion to the Roman Catholic faith. Heather, known for her kindness and bright personality, was considering a religious vocation and had spoken of becoming a nun. The evening was spent in quiet enjoyment. The friends shared a meal, watched television, and engaged in light-hearted conversation. They had no reason to suspect that danger was lurking nearby, or that their lives were about to change forever. The triplex itself was located in a relatively quiet neighborhood, offering a sense of security to its residents. Jason, Brad, and Aaron had chosen the location for its convenience and affordability, and it had served as a comfortable home for them. On that cold December night, snow began to fall outside, and by 11 p.m., the group began to wind down. Jason and H.G. retired to his bedroom, while Brad and Aaron settled into their respective rooms. Heather stayed in the living room, likely preparing to rest soon. The atmosphere was one of calm and comfort, with no indication of the terror that would soon descend upon them. Unbeknownst to the friends, Reginald and Jonathan Carr were already in the vicinity, scouting for their next victims. The brothers, emboldened by their previous crimes and driven by a desire for money and dominance, had chosen the triplex as their target. As the porch light flickered on, Jason jokingly remarked to H.G., "Don't tell me I have to get up and turn off the light again." Moments later, they heard muffled voices coming from another part of the house. Assuming it was Aaron or Brad speaking with Heather, they paid little attention. But within seconds, their world was shattered by the sound of the front door being forced open. Jason and H.G. barely had time to react before their bedroom door was kicked open. Standing in the doorway were two armed men, their faces obscured by masks. The Carr brothers had arrived, and what followed would become one of the most harrowing and brutal crimes in Wichita's history. The couple was ordered to get out of bed, and Jason was immediately assaulted. Meanwhile, Brad Heika and Heather Muller were also dragged from their rooms, completing the group of captives. The victims were herded into a single room where the ordeal began. The Carr brothers demanded money, jewelry, and ATM cards. Under duress, the victims provided what little cash they had on hand. Unsatisfied, the brothers forced the victims to hand over their bank cards and disclose their PINs. One of the brothers left with Aaron Sander and Brad Heika to withdraw money from nearby ATMs, while the other remained behind to guard the remaining hostages. As the minutes ticked by, the tension in the house grew unbearable. The captives, stripped of their clothing and dignity, huddled together, trying to offer each other what little comfort they could. Despite the fear gripping them, they clung to the hope that compliance might ensure their survival. Upon returning, the brothers escalated their cruelty. They subjected each of the victims to sexual assault, alternating between psychological torment and physical violence. The acts were calculated to instill maximum terror and dehumanization. After hours of terrorizing the group, the Carr brothers decided to move the victims from the triplex. They forced Jason, H.G., Aaron, Brad, and Heather into two vehicles, Jason's truck and Aaron's Honda Accord. The captives were barely clothed, and the freezing December night added to their torment. The brothers drove the vehicles to a remote soccer field on the outskirts of Wichita, where the next phase of their heinous crime would unfold. Upon arriving at the snow-covered soccer field, the Carr brothers ordered the captives out of the vehicles. The victims, cold and disoriented, were instructed to kneel in a line beside one another. The reality of their impending fate began to set in as the brothers brandished their handguns. H.G. later described the chilling moment when she realized what was about to happen. "They're going to shoot us," she whispered to Heather Muller, who knelt beside her. Heather, who had maintained a quiet strength throughout the ordeal, tried to reassure her, though the fear was palpable. Reginald and Jonathan Carr began executing the victims one by one, shooting each of them in the head. Jason, Brad, Aaron, and Heather were eliminated instantly, their lifeless bodies collapsing into the snow. HG, however, was miraculously spared by what would later be described as sheer luck. The bullet intended to end her life struck her hair clip, deflecting the shot enough to prevent a fatal wound. Though severely injured, she managed to remain conscious. To ensure that none of their victims survived, the Carr brothers then drove Jason's truck over the bodies. HG felt the excruciating pain of the vehicle's tires rolling over her, but she continued to feign death, hoping the brothers would leave without noticing her survival. Once the Carr brothers departed, HG summoned every ounce of strength she had left. Despite her head wound and the freezing temperatures, she managed to get up and make her way toward the distant lights of a farmhouse she had seen earlier. She trudged through the snow, her body racked with pain, and collapsed several times before reaching a nearby road. HG's determination to survive was nothing short of heroic. Despite her injuries and the trauma she had endured, she reached the farmhouse and pounded on the door until the occupants let her in. The homeowners immediately called 911, and HG provided critical information to the police about the location of her friends and the identity of her attackers. The aftermath of the murders. HG's account led police to the crime scene, where they discovered the lifeless bodies of Jason Beaufort, Brad Haka, Aaron Sander, and Heather Muller. The brutal and methodical nature of the deaths shocked even seasoned investigators. The scene at the remote soccer field was haunting. 4 friends, bound by love and friendship, now lay side by side in the snow, victims of an unthinkable act of cruelty. Back at the triplex, officers uncovered further evidence of the Carr brothers' crime spree. The home, once filled with laughter and warmth, now bore the marks of terror, ransacked rooms, broken items, and signs of the violence that had taken place. Among the most heart-wrenching discoveries was the body of Nikki, HG's beloved schnauzer. The dog, a symbol of loyalty and comfort to HG, had been cruelly beaten and stabbed by the Carr brothers, adding another layer of tragedy to the night's events. The news of the murders spread quickly, plunging the Wichita community into a state of grief and fear. Residents, already shaken by the recent murder of Ann Walenta, now faced the horror of another senseless crime. The randomness and brutality of the acts left many feeling vulnerable, wondering how such violence could erupt in their quiet city. Support poured in for the victims' families and the lone survivor. HG friends, neighbors, and even strangers reached out to offer condolences, assistance, and solidarity. Vigils were held, and the community came together in mourning, determined to honor the memory of those lost. As the investigation intensified, police worked tirelessly to track down the perpetrators. They knew that capturing the Carr brothers was crucial, not only to deliver justice, but also to restore a sense of safety to Wichita. HG's detailed description of the attackers provided a critical lead, giving investigators a starting point in their hunt for the killers. Meanwhile, media coverage of the crime heightened public interest and anxiety. Local news outlets reported on the progress of the investigation, while national networks picked up the story, bringing the Wichita horror to the attention of the entire country. The chilling details of the crime spree, from the home invasion to the executions in the snow, captivated and horrified audiences. Despite the overwhelming grief, there was also a growing sense of resolve. Law enforcement officials vowed to bring the perpetrators to justice, and the community rallied behind the survivors and victims' families.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now, and the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance.
Following the horrific events of December 14, 2000, Wichita law enforcement officials launched an intensive investigation, knowing that apprehending the perpetrators quickly was crucial for public safety. The first significant break in the case came the morning after the murders when a resident, Christian Taylor, noticed a suspicious truck parked in his apartment complex. He recognized it from news reports as Jason Beaufort's stolen silver Dodge Dakota. Taylor immediately contacted the police, who responded swiftly. Upon arriving at the complex, officers confirmed that the vehicle was indeed Beaufort's truck. Their attention soon turned to a second-floor apartment where Reginald Carr was staying. Police observed Reginald attempting to flee by jumping off the balcony but quickly realized he was surrounded. Realizing escape was impossible, he retreated into the apartment. Police knocked on the door, which was opened by Reginald's girlfriend, Stephanie Donnelly. Officers entered the apartment and arrested Reginald Carr without incident. The search of the apartment yielded a trove of stolen items belonging to the victims, including electronics, clothing, and personal.
I just want to put this out there and shit. Niggas be killers, man. Y'all niggas is killers, straight steppers. But y'all niggas will not kill the police. Y'all niggas won't kill them police, nigga. Y'all let them arrest y'all without incident. But y'all niggas will kill each other, no problem. You killing this nigga, no problem. But y'all niggas won't kill them police, though. Y'all ain't really stepping like that.
Belongings.
Bitch
Reginald's
ass
arrest
niggas.
was the first major breakthrough, but police knew they still needed to apprehend his brother. As news of Reginald's
Don't
arrest
be that,
spread,
nigga, be that,
Andrew
nigga.
Schreiber, the Carr brothers' first victim from the earlier carjacking,
Niggas let
saw
the
his
police
mugshot on
apprehend y'all
television.
without incident.
Recognizing him as one of the men who had abducted and robbed him, Schreiber immediately contacted the police to provide additional
I ain't
information,
no gangster.
further
I ain't no
solidifying the
stepper,
case
so
against
I don't be
Reginald.
living like that.
Meanwhile, another critical tip came from Toni Green, the mother of Jonathan Carr's girlfriend, Tronda Adams. Green had grown increasingly suspicious of Jonathan after hearing descriptions of the suspects on the news. She found a diamond ring in Jonathan's possession, which she believed could have been stolen during the crime spree. The detail that solidified her suspicions, however, was the white Plymouth parked outside her house, matching the description of a vehicle sought by the police. Acting on Green's tip, police arrived at her home. Upon seeing law enforcement approach, Jonathan Carr attempted to flee on foot. Officers pursued him through the neighborhood, eventually capturing him 2 blocks away. He was arrested without further resistance, bringing an end to the Carr brothers' violent rampage. The arrests of Reginald and Jonathan Carr brought a palpable sense of relief to the Wichita community. After a week of terror, residents could finally feel some semblance of safety returning. However, for the families of the victims and the lone survivor, HG, the arrests were only the beginning of a long journey toward justice. With both suspects in custody, police focused on gathering evidence to build a comprehensive case. The stolen truck, the recovered items, and DNA samples collected from the scene were critical pieces of evidence. HG provided a detailed description of the attackers and the events of that night, offering invaluable testimony that would later play a pivotal role in court.
Wix gives you the freedom to tell your story.
Forensic experts were brought in to analyze the physical evidence. Ballistics tests linked the gun used by the Carr brothers to the shootings at the soccer field and the earlier murder of Ann Walenta. DNA analysis further connected the brothers to the sexual assaults of HG and Heather Muller. While the arrests marked a significant milestone, the investigation continued as police worked tirelessly to ensure that the case against the Carr brothers was airtight. The brutality and randomness of the crimes had shocked the nation, and law enforcement officials were determined to deliver justice for the victims and their families. In the days following the arrest of Reginald and Jonathan Carr, Wichita law enforcement officers meticulously pieced together the evidence needed to prosecute the brothers. Physical evidence played a crucial role in linking the brothers to the murders and assaults. Forensic investigators examined the recovered items for fingerprints and DNA. Blood evidence found on some of the stolen clothing matched that of Heather Muller, confirming that Reginald Carr had been in close contact with her during the attack. Perhaps the most damning forensic evidence came from the DNA analysis of swabs taken from HG, the lone survivor of the massacre. Laboratory tests confirmed that the DNA matched both Reginald and Jonathan Carr, conclusively proving their involvement in the sexual assaults. Furthermore, hair samples and fibers collected from the crime scenes matched those found in the Carr brothers' apartment and vehicles. Ballistics evidence also played a significant role in the investigation. Police recovered shell casings and bullets from the soccer field where the victims were eliminated. Ballistics experts analyzed the markings on the bullets and determined they had been fired from the same weapon used in the earlier shooting of Anne Walenta. Though the firearm itself had been discarded, the consistent ballistic evidence linked the Carr brothers to all the shootings. In addition to physical evidence, eyewitness testimony proved invaluable. H.G. provided a detailed and harrowing account of the events, describing the Carr brothers' actions and behavior during the home invasion, assaults, and executions. The Carr brothers' first known victim also testified, recounting the events of his carjacking and robbery on December 8th. His testimony helped establish a pattern of escalating violence, starting with robbery and culminating in the brutal murders. Schreiber's ability to identify Reginald Carr as one of his abductors further bolstered the prosecution's case. Neighbors and other residents of Wichita also came forward with information.
My neighbor Brian was like, yo, where'd you get this knife? I'm like, Bespoke Post, man.
I see you talking about Bespoke. All
Detectives also obtained surveillance footage from various ATMs where the victims had been forced to withdraw money. The grainy footage showed the victims under duress accompanied by masked individuals. Though the footage did not clearly show the brothers' faces, it corroborated the timeline provided by H.G. and other witnesses. Further tying the brothers to the crimes was the recovery of personal items from the victims, including a diamond engagement ring Jason Beaufort had purchased for H.G., but had not yet given to her. The ring was found in Jonathan Carr's possession at the time of his arrest. In September 2002, the trial of the Carr brothers commenced. Chief Deputy District Attorney Kim Parker and District Attorney Nola Falston led the prosecution. The defense attempted to argue for leniency by highlighting the brothers' troubled upbringing. The courtroom was packed with family members, media, and concerned citizens, all seeking justice for the victims. Reginald and Jonathan Carr were charged with 113 counts, including capital murder, rape, kidnapping, and robbery. The severity of their crimes prompted the prosecution to seek the death penalty.
Yes, sir.
The defense focused on the Carr brothers' troubled childhood and argued that their actions were influenced by years of abuse and neglect. Psychologists testified about the psychological impact of their upbringing, attempting to evoke sympathy from
Not to take nothing away from what they've been through, but a lot of kids been through what they've been through and ain't out here terrorizing people's families, killing 4 and 5 people at a time, and robbing people, killing. You know what I'm saying? People seek therapy, not taking nothing away from what they've been through. You know what I'm saying? Ultimately, they did commit crimes, but, you know, they chose to go down that road. Some people choose to seek help and to deal with. They had to go through, take therapy, and grow. But other people choose to hurt other people and, you know, do crime and to deal and cope with their pain and what they went through. So they just chose the wrong road, and now they gotta sleep in the bed they made, basically.
from the jury. However, the evidence of their calculated and brutal actions proved overwhelming. In November 2002, after weeks of deliberation, the jury found Reginald and Jonathan Carr guilty on all counts. The verdict was met with relief and sorrow by the victims' families, who had endured the painful trial. The brothers showed no remorse as the verdicts were read. The sentencing phase saw emotional statements from the victims' families. Despite the defense's pleas for leniency, the jury recommended the death penalty for both brothers. Judge Paul Clark formally sentenced Reginald and Jonathan Carr to death, bringing a sense of closure to a grieving community. The Wichita horror left an indelible mark on the city and the nation. The Carr brothers' case remains a somber reminder of the depths of human depravity and the resilience of those who survive such ordeals. For H.G. and the families of the victims, life would never be the same. Yet their courage and pursuit of justice ensured that the memory of those lost would never be forgotten.
Loved what you saw? Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to join our...
I'm gonna pause it right there, Gorilla Gang. But yeah, so I mean, ultimately they gotta accept that death sentence. You know what I'm saying? They knew what they was doing was wrong. They wasn't out their mind to where they didn't know right from wrong. You know what I'm saying? They knew what they was doing. So ultimately they gotta take that in stride, and then when they die, they gotta accept that they about to die. You know, the state about to kill them. So they on death row having to walk their days down, knowing your death date is something different. But y'all let me know what y'all think about that story in the comments. You know, like always, like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel. We are a growing channel. Come and grow with us. It don't cost nothing to hit the like button, man. So, you know, do that for me. You know, it's free. So, you know, with that being said, you already know the spiel. Till next time, we out.